أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In 637, the Patriarch Sepharonius, a representative of the Byzantine government, gave the keys of Jerusalem to Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, the second Caliph of Islam. These keys were given at the fall of Jerusalem to the Muslim Empire. What is very, very interesting is that when Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu was shown Jerusalem, he asked Sepharonius, "Where are the Jews?" He said, "Where are the Jews?" He said, "We killed them. We killed them and we sent them out of Jerusalem." Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, if you want to study Roy Casagrande, what does Roy Casagrande say about this event? He says that Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, the second Caliph of Islam, he said, "No, you cannot do this. You cannot kill the Jews. You cannot send them outside of the land of Jerusalem." He then turned to a new convert and said, "Find me Jewish families." And he re-established Jews in Palestine. Yes, my friends, many of you don't know this, but it was Umar Khattab radiallahu anhu, the second Caliph of Islam, that reintroduced Jews into Palestine, because under the Islamic Empire and the Islamic law, it was prohibited to be attacking people on the matter of their religion and evicting them from their homes and committing injustice. The Muslims ruled for 462 years before the Crusaders came back in. Study the works of Karen Armstrong, the British historian, who says the difference between the way the Muslims interacted with the Jews and the way that the Crusaders interacted with the Jews is like chalk and cheese. Her words, not my words. When the Crusaders went back in, there was bloodshed again. And they boasted that the streets of Jerusalem were where the blood was high up to their knees at the slaughter that they did for the Jews and for the Muslims and for those Christians who stood with the Muslims. So when they tell you that the Muslims have a bad history with the Jewish people, this is a lie. This is maligning what actually happened. This is untrue. This is propaganda. And it goes against the historical narrative. Not our historical narrative, my friends, but Western historical narrative. It goes against that narrative. Now, many people argue that the Palestinian people are actually an invading people into the land of Israel. This is another lie that they present to you, my friends. There are recent works done on genetics that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Palestinian people are related with their DNA up to 50 or 60% to the Canaanite people who were there over 3,500 years ago. So they have roots to that land. So when they tell you that these are an invading people who took out the indigenous people, i.e. the Jews, this is nothing but propaganda and nothing but a lie. The problem that the Palestinians have is that this DNA link to the Canaanite people is both a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, they can prove their rights, historical rights to the land. But on another front, they become ammunition for the extremist Israeli sentiment and Zionism, which clearly has roots within the Old Testament. Yes, my friends. If you study 1 Samuel 15 verses 1 to 3, it talks about the Canaanite people And in particular, it talks about the people who are the descendants of the Canaanites, the Amalekites. And it says specifically that you have to wipe out these people, commit genocide on them. The Bible clearly states killing the men, the women, the children, even the donkeys and the ass. Everything has to be wiped out. And there are Jewish sects today that believe that this is not limited to just those people in history, but is actually linked to the very descendants, which are the Palestinian people that come from the Canaanites. Now you might say, these are rather extreme claims that you're making. Where is your evidence for this? You're saying that there are some Jewish extremist groups that are referring to the Canaanite roots, or the roots that go right back 3,500 years to the Amalekites, and therefore that these Palestinians have to be killed. Look at the doctrine of religious Zionists regarding the modern day Palestinian Canaanites. They regard it as a religious duty of the government to wage war and exterminate the Palestinians. If you look at the works of Rabbi Abraham Kook, his son Yehuda Kook, Rabbi Shlomo Aviner, they all cite these teachings and justify the genocide and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Now you might say, those are rather extreme views. They're not mainstream. They're not mainstream. These are just a few factions. Then why is it that Benjamin Netanyahu, in his last speech, mentions the Amalek? Why did he mention this word? What was this dog whistle for? He's reminding the people who the Amalek are, who the Amalekites are. The Palestinians are the descendants of the Amalekites. In fact, what he's doing, he's sanctifying and encouraging and authenticating the genocide by linking it back to biblical texts and historical issues. So these are not fringe arguments. These are not extremists on one side. This seems to be a mainstream drive that the Israelis, many of the Israelis, and I don't want to be unfair and say all, because that would be unfair, but there is a significant number who are citing these verses. And you have on record, you can go and search it for yourselves, where rabbis are saying, kill their men and their children and even their babies and their children and their women, and show them no mercy. And they're quoting these biblical verses. So these are not fringe arguments. I want to refer you to a recent video released on blogging theology by Brother Paul. It's a very, very informative video about this topic and just how this pernicious idea has found itself within mainstream Israel. The video is titled Radical Judaism and the Attack on Gaza. Go and search this video and watch this video. My brothers and my sisters, there is only one way to describe what's happening today in Palestine. There is only one way to describe it. Does that look like self-defense to you from here to here? Does that look like a nation that's under attack and is defending its right to exist? It doesn't look like it to me. That to me looks like a complete takeover. That to me looks like cleansing a people of their land, of their dignity, of their rights. How else can you explain this picture? They say a picture speaks 1,000 words. I'd say this picture speaks 1,000,000 words. And every word is oppression. Every word is ethnic cleansing. Every word is a society, a people that have deliberately orchestrated this denial of the existence of the Palestinian people and have ethnically cleansed them There is no other explanation to this. This is not self-defense. This is not defending your right to exist. This does not show a people who were interested in any peace process or any negotiation to share the land. This does not look like sharing anything, my friends. This is pure, unadulterated occupation. This is ethnic cleansing, and there is only one way to explain that, my friends. Now, people say it's not ethnic cleansing. It's not ethnic cleansing. This is just war. We're occupying a people because of war. Let's look at the definition that has been widely adopted and accepted and has been cited when we have taken people to The Hague for ethnic cleansing and for war crimes. The definition of ethnic cleansing is the mass expulsion or killing of members of one ethnic or religious group in an area by those of another. Tell me, my brothers and my sisters, that that's not happening here. Tell me that's not happening here. The definition of genocide is the deliberate killing of large numbers of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation. Now, it's very difficult to pin genocide on any government or any movement. The reason why it's very difficult to do that is because you have to prove something called intent. You have to prove that they had intended to do this before you can prove it. Now, I want you to remember these definitions because we're going to go back to these definitions. Now, people say that these poor Jews from all around the world, they wanted sanctity somewhere. They wanted peace. They wanted to run from Christian Europe, which was annihilating them and killing them with the multiple pogroms. And so they wanted a home. And they had never planned to take the whole of Palestine. They had always intended to share it with their Palestinian brothers, they'll tell you. This is what they say to you. But this is another lie. This is another deception that they play. We have explicit sayings from Zionists before even the state of Israel was solidified by the United Nations in 1947. We have Joseph Witz, was the director of the Jewish National Land Fund on December 19th, 1940. He wrote, now listen to his words, what he says. 7 years before the United Nations even gave Israel to the Israelis, to the Jews, he says, it must be clear that there is no room for both people in this country. So when you tell me that this land was going to be shared, this is a lie. The intention from the very beginning was to take over the land. And as we can see here, a picture speaks 1,000 words, my friends. But this one speaks 1,000,000 words. That was the intention from the very beginning. I could go through a list of people, influential people who were at the onset, the people who were the influencers, the antagonists, the real propagators of the state of Israel and their comments. But it would be very easy for you to go and search that for yourselves, my friends. Many people who are saying, okay, but that was then, you know, of course we don't want the annihilation of the Palestinian people. We're just attacking Hamas. Then why is it that we have even today the former Israeli military officer at Israel's elite intelligence unit 8200? His name is Elihu Yossian. Elihu Yossian. He called for an ethnic cleansing in Gaza on TV, on national TV. And again, there are countless statements that are made. Former Israeli ambassador to Italy, Dror Aidar, He proposes to destroy all of Palestine. Tell me these are not genocidal comments. And remember I told you that you need to prove intent. You need to prove that your objective is to do ethnic cleansing. You need to prove that there is an intent to do genocide. These people, influential people, people in government, the Prime Minister himself, they are saying things that qualify this intent. Now, we're being told that there can be no peace because of Hamas, that has been designated by the Europeans and Americans as a terrorist organization. There can be no peace because of Hamas, they claim. I just wonder how many of you know who were the main people that propagated and supported Hamas. Have a guess, my friends.
Israel.
Who could it be? Thank you. Thank you. Can you believe that? The very people that complain about an organization, they say a terrorist organization, that is a hurdle for peace, are the very people who established and supported it in the first place. Now you might ask the question, why would they support a group that they regarded to be terrorists? Why? Why would they do such a foolish thing? Because they realized that the PLO and the Palestinian Authority were trying to go down the peace process. They wanted the United Nations and the world to do justice for them. And they realized that they could not win a war, a battle with Israel that was a superpower and had another superpower that was its bully and its friend. So, to accomplish the goal, my friends, if you want all the land, you can't have the Palestinian Authority. You can't have the PLO wanting to negotiate peace with you, because how do you make the green turn to white? How do you steal all the land? You can't enter into peaceful negotiations. So in 1987, they propped it up, Hamas, and supported it financially. These are not controversial conspiratorial theories, my friends. Go and do the digging and the research yourself. So they go and support a terrorist organization to create the monster that they need in order to accomplish the goal that was already in place before even the formation of Israel. So you have to create the monster. Now you claim, look, we innocent people only want to live in peace, but because of this monster that we financially supported, we now need to cleanse them and kill them and attack them. And whenever we bomb a hospital, and whenever you bomb a house or a building or a medical facility or a kindergarten, yes, kindergarten, we just say there's a Hamas fighter hiding inside that building, inside that hospital. And that's why we poor Israelis have to go and kill all these innocent people. We don't want to kill the people. Of course we don't want to do that. We're launching military-grade ammunitions that were designed for a battlefield to destroy bunkers, my friends, bunkers that are reinforced with meters of concrete. And we're going to throw those munitions on a civilian population. But we don't want to hurt the population. We don't want to kill the people. We just want to kill these bad Hamas boys that are hurting us. The same Hamas that we supported financially in the 1980s to create the very monster in the first place is the ones that we are going and bombing. But we don't want to hurt the people. We respect the people. We want to look after their interests. My friends, how foolish do you have to be? How blind must you be that you can't see what they're doing there? How blind must you be? How many more excuses will you make for this bloodshed? How much more? How many more have to die before you start thinking to yourself, this narrative doesn't make sense to me. that maybe I'm being lied to. How many more must die? We have Avner Cohen, a former Israeli religious affairs official who worked in Gaza for more than 2 decades. You know what he said? Israeli. Worked for the religious affairs official. What does he say? He says, Hamas, to my great regret, is Israel's creation. These are not the Palestinians that are saying this. These are not the Muslim Palestinians or the Christian Palestinians that are saying this. This is the Israelis themselves saying it. That our greatest regret is that we created Hamas. We created this monster. They wanted to stall the peace process. But in that, what they did, the roots of evil will always result in greater evil. When you plant evil, you will get evil. This is the result. This is what always happens. My message to my American friends across the pond. You fought many wars for independence, for your freedom, because you did not want to be enslaved to us, the British. Wars of independence, many died. You did not want to pay taxes to the British. You fought people for your own sovereignty. What has happened to you today, my friends? What has happened to you today? Where is your sovereignty? You hang the American flag, yet there is another flag that shrouds your flag, that tells you what you can say, what you can do, and what you can't do. Did you know that you Americans spend 4 times more on providing Israel with its bombs and its missiles than you spend on food aid for your own people? How enslaved have you become? Your people don't eat, yet you provide bombs to kill innocent people thousands of miles away. How subservient have you become? How enslaved have you become that you starved your own? You starved your own people to go and kill and starve another people thousands of miles away. And you wave your flags like it means something. You've become enslaved to a foreign power and you can't even see this for yourself. The Israeli lobby, go and study the Israeli lobby. How your sovereignty and your leaders have sacrificed. You sacrificed what your forefathers fought for your freedom, only to be enslaved to another country thousands of miles away, where you can't even speak out against what is happening. Even if you speak out just to say, stop the killing, enough, just that, you are cancelled. You'll lose your job. You can't even say, stop the murder, stop the killing. Even that thorn is so painful to the American administration and the leadership and the media that you're cancelled. That's how enslaved you become. What freedom do you what freedom do you have, really? Really? This is freedom? I would say the Palestinian is more freer than you. Because even though he's bombed, even though his houses are being taken over and his buildings are bombed, the kindergartens are bombed, the hospitals are bombed, they don't bow to anyone. Yet you bow to a foreign power. They are freer than you. That's what I say. Any criticism to Israel in America, you're finished. You are absolutely finished. Go and see what they've done to models or to actors or anyone that has spoken out. You're immediately labeled as a hate preacher, someone with hate, a Hamas sympathizer, a terrorist sympathizer. They will shut you down. So when you say to me that we, the Americans, are free, you're not free. You're enslaved. And I say shame on you that you are so enslaved, so convinced by this slavery that you can't even, you've not even realized this, that you can't even think about this for yourselves and realize that something is wrong here. My people are starving I have an epidemic of drugs. I have an epidemic of homelessness. I have an epidemic of people who can't eat. Yet I will give 4 times my taxpayers' money, my taxes, to a foreign country. And you think that you're free? No, my friends, you're enslaved. A message to my countrymen. Yes, the English. We are not, unfortunately, we haven't escaped this ourselves. We haven't escaped this ourselves. We have Remembrance Day today. What do we remember? We remember the brave soldiers that fought against what? They fought against Nazis. They fought against pillage, rape, murder, killing, genocide. That's what they fought against. They fought so we would be free today. My ancestors that came from India, millions lost their lives in the Second World War as well. Perhaps lesser known fact. You only have to go a short distance from here and you will find a monument for the animals of war. We glorify the mules and the horses and the animals that played a part in the Second World War. Where's the monument for the millions of Indians that died in the Second World War? Or the Africans that died in the Second World War? Where are those monuments? Our lives, they don't seem to be worth more than the mule or the donkey. They have a monument on Park Lane glorifying, and what does it say? They had no choice. It's true. The horses and the mules, they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. But the millions of Indians that fought in the Second World War, many of them did not have a choice either. So where are the monuments for them? But that's a different subject, maybe for a different day. Why have we also become enslaved in England? Why have we become enslaved to a foreign power? If we in England called for a ceasefire, if we in England called for the murder and the killing to stop, we're cancelled as well. Social media will cancel you. EF Dawah have had videos that have been cancelled, that have been shadow banned because they don't want this to reach the people. So if any of you want this video, email us at EF Dawah and we will provide you with a high quality video that you can put on your channel. We're not interested in the clicks and the views and the money. We just want the words to get out. And so they're just silencing us. Our own government, when people want to march and simply say, stop the killing, how do they label us? Hate marchers. We are hate marchers. We are the hateful ones. We want the killing to stop, but we're the ones filled with hate. Bullshit. The ones that are supporting the killing militarily, legally, financially, politically, with the media, they're not the hate. They're not the people with hate, no. But the people wanting to march and stop the killing are the ones who are hateful. My brothers and my sisters, recently, Craig Mochiba, he resigned from the United Nations. He was working there from 1992 to 2023. 31 years he worked for the United Nations. He's a long-term international human rights lawyer who served as the director of the New York office of the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. He accuses the United Nations of failing to address what he calls a textbook case of genocide unfolding in the Palestinian Authority, in the Palestinian territories. A textbook definition of what is deemed genocide. Who is he? 31 years he worked as a lawyer in the United Nations. But they want to ignore people like that. They want to redefine human rights are. They want to redefine what ethnic cleansing is. They want to redefine these things so Israel does not fall foul. We have our own leaders, like Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister. Now just hear these words And look at what has unfolded. When he visits Israel and he meets Benjamin Netanyahu, what does he say to him? These words I think are quite chilling. I am proud here to stand with you in Israel's darkest hour. Just think about that. And he said in the news conference to Benjamin Netanyahu, we will stand with you in solidarity. We will stand with your people and we want you to win. Looks like they've been winning for a very long time, doesn't it? That looks like winning, doesn't it? That was Palestine and this is what's left. So I don't think they need much help from our Prime Minister to win effectively what amounts to ethnic cleansing and the complete emptying of the Palestinian territories. Now, there are many reasons why our politicians are supporting Israel. Rishi Sunak's own father-in-law established a company called Infosys. Infosys has a director from the 8200, which is the Israeli Intelligence Corps. Can you imagine if the Prime Minister's father-in-law had established a company and on that company was a Russian intelligence officer? Would we accept that? A foreign country with intelligence linked so closely to our own Prime Minister, but we turn a blind eye to this. Priti Patel, not so pretty in her actions, I would say. Priti Patel, the International Development Secretary at the time of Theresa May. She has 12 secret meetings with Israeli officials, including Benjamin Netanyahu, and she's forced out of government by the government of the time, Theresa May, only to be reinstated by Boris Johnson and now with Rishi Sunak. These people, if you imagine a high-ranking politician meeting a foreign government without even your own government knowing, what does that amount to? I say that's quite treasonous. This is treason. You're colluding with a foreign power without your even government knowing. But we, the British people, have seemed to have lost our sovereignty and our dignity, where we don't even care any longer. Now, I have a theory that's not prevalent at the moment out there. But I think it's a theory worth considering because there seems to be a lot of evidence pointing in this direction. Some of you might know Jeffrey Epstein, the prolific child trafficker, and he had a secret island and numerous houses around the world where he carried out his crimes. The problem is he was not alone in carrying out his crimes. He had politicians, billionaires, media tycoons, influential media pundits and high-profile lawyers, to name but a few. Now, what's very interesting, that the decades-long child trafficking and child raping and these influential people that he was very close with, there's a very important twist to the whole story. Former Israeli spy Ari Ben-Madshe claims that Epstein was working for Mossad, who set up many honey traps. Many honey traps. A honey trap is when you hide cameras, microphones, and you get somebody to do something quite illicit, something vulgar, something illegal, and then you use that as leverage. The question that I now ask, how many honey traps were set up? With how many of the billionaires, the media tycoons, and the influencers that we have around today? And how many of them are being blackmailed? There are high-profile cases already in court where very senior lawyers, Zionist lawyers, have themselves been accused of raping these underage women with Epstein. And those cases are going on. As a consequence, I'm not going to name any names because we don't want to fall into any legal issues here. There are many inconsistencies with the Israeli events on 7th of October. And again, I don't like to delve into conspiratorials or conspiracies. So what I am going to do, I'm going to quote Israeli sources. The former head of the Israeli military intelligence, Amos Yadlin, he claims that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu already knew of the imminent attack. Muslims are not making this claim. The Palestinians haven't made this claim. This is an Israeli intelligence officer, Amos Yadlin, who's making this claim. Now the question arises, if they knew, why would they allow it to happen? My friends, you need a monster. You need an event. Just like the weapons of mass destruction, just like the justification for the war against terror that claimed the lives of 4.8 million innocent Muslims around the world. You need to have an outrage. So you have to allow certain things to happen so you can accomplish your ultimate goal, which is to show the world that all you're doing is you're defending yourself, while in fact what you're doing is a takeover, which what you have been doing from the very beginning. Now, the Israeli intelligence officer is not the only one that challenges the narrative. We have a survivor, a Jewish survivor, Yasmin Porat. She was in the kibbutz that was bombed, where a lot of Israelis and Hamas operatives apparently died. On Israeli radio, live radio, she said that the Israeli forces indiscriminately shot at and bombed places where Hamas and the civilian population that were being held by Hamas. And therefore, she admitted on radio that many of the lives were lost because of Israeli actions. Now, the question that you need to ask yourself, these stories are not coming from the Palestinians. These are not coming from the Palestinians. These are not coming from Muslims or from Christian Palestinians. These are coming from Israeli sources themselves. These are coming from Israeli sources themselves. If it's bullshit, go and do some research. Educate yourself. Don't just make stupid comments. Educate yourself. Now, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Israel says, we warn the people to get out before we bomb them. We warn them before we bomb them. Okay? This is what the Israelis are saying. Now just imagine this. If a Hamas operative is in a building and you warn that building that you're about to bomb it, who is the first person that's going to leave that building?
Absolutely.
Who? It's going to be Hamas that's going to leave, right? So does that even make sense to you? That you're claiming, on the one hand, that you are targeting only the Hamas operative, but then you're sending a warning that you're about to bomb, and you're sending warning bombings around that building that you're about to bomb that building. And then when you do bomb it, and you kill all the innocent people, you say, but we were only trying to kill the Hamas operative. Does that even make any sense to you? How can you be so gullible and so foolish to think that an enemy that you want to kill, you're going to give them a 1 day or 2 day warning that I'm about to bomb that place? It's absurd. It's absurd. Now, another fact, my friends. They've bombed tens of thousands of buildings. Tens of thousands of buildings in Gaza. They've bombed more buildings than they claim Hamas operatives. So again, another inconsistency. It simply does not make sense, my friend. It simply does not make sense. Now, these foolish people ask us, before we start a conversation, they say, do you condemn Hamas? First question. The first question they ask us, do you condemn terrorism? Do you condemn what happened on the 7th of October? This is the first question they ask us. Now, the question that I would like to ask, how dare you question my humanity? Because in reality, what you're asking me is, do I support the killing of innocent children? Do I support that? That's the question that you're asking me. Do you ever meet a stranger? Do you ever meet somebody that you don't know? And the first question that you ask them, oh, by the way, do you support the killing of innocent babies and children? Do you ask that question? Or do you think good of people? Do you assume goodness about people? Do you assume, of course, somebody's not going to support the killing of innocent babies or innocent children? Because that would make you a maniac. That would make you a psychopath. So why do they feel they can ask us this question? Why do we have to qualify our humanity when we don't support Hamas militarily, financially, with our words, or with any statements, but yet we have to qualify our humanity? By the way, why do we have to do that when you are supporting Israel that commits ethnic cleansing, has committed ethnic cleansing for the last 75 years, has deliberately targeted civilians, according to Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and B'Tselem, and the list goes on. You support the killing of innocent Palestinian people, and then you have the audacity to question me about my humanity when your humanity is bankrupt, when you're already lost, when you're a walking corpse, because you support the killing of innocent people. I say, how dare you? How dare you? You have no right to be asking the Muslims or the Palestinians to condemn anything. It is you and your support for a terrorist state that does terrorism on the Palestinian people that fits the definitions, the very definitions that were used against other nations for ethnic cleansing and genocide. It is you that needs to defend your position. We are not. Our position and our humanity is not in question. Alhamdulillah, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it very clear. You cannot target a child deliberately, even on a battlefield, let alone when you just bomb them from the sky. This is our religion. These are our principles. You cannot kill a non-combatant deliberately targeting them. This is our religion. These are our principles. They're not in question. It is your lack of humanity and your mass killing of the Palestinian people, or your supporting it, is what's under question. And it is you who needs to condemn that, not us. My friends, we are at a crossroads with this particular issue. We can either support the mass murder, the brutality, the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. According to many jurists, this is not just ethnic cleansing, this is genocide. And it fits genocide because the very intent to do it has been established with their own testimonies and their own words and their own actions. So we are at a crossroads. You can either support the killing and the murder and the genocide of a people who are predominantly civilians, or you can stand on the right side of history and you can say that this is wrong. This murder, this killing, this genocide is wrong. The choice is not complicated. The choice is not complicated, but you need to have a heart and you need to have eyes to see. But if you are blind, and if you simply want to feed your predispositions that the Arab is a savage, the brown man is a savage, and therefore what Israel is doing is right, then you can look throughout history. Those were the same justifications that were given to wipe out the indigenous American, millions of whom were killed. And those were the same words that were used for the indigenous populations of Australia when they committed the genocide on those people. It's the same old filthy sewage that is being recycled again about the Palestinian people. So you can either swim in the sewage, or you can stand against it. The choice is yours. But I've said this before and I'll say it again. Your children and your grandchildren, if you pick the wrong side, if you pick the side of the oppressor, the one committing the genocide and the mass murder, your children and your generations in the future will not look at you with kindness. They will wonder as to why my father or my grandfather, my uncle or my aunt stood with the oppressor, with the one that committed the genocide and the ethnic cleansing. I hope that you stand on the right side of history and stand up for the people and join those who stood up for the indigenous American, for the indigenous Australian, for the African. They stood up against the public opinion that was justifying that genocide and the ethnic cleansing. They were the minority. I don't believe that today we are the minority, even though the media and the politicians are owned in the West by the Israeli lobbies. The people are not having it. And the majority of people are against this mass murder and this killing. So I hope that you open your eyes and you open your hearts and you see what is happening. My friends, this is ethnic cleansing. This is genocide. And no matter what words, no matter what trickery, no matter what linguistic gymnastics or rewriting of history you use, the map does not lie. This picture does not lie. They have taken over the entire land. There are only a few specks left, and they've already made it clear that they need to take what's left. This is textbook genocide, textbook ethnic cleansing. Stand up for the people who are the victims. Don't stand up for the perpetrators of hate, the perpetrators of genocide. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
May peace, mercy and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of Almighty God be on all of you.